Shiraz, congratulations. Mablanga. Oh my God, you got knocked out. Oh my God. Oh, something Canelo Alvaroids couldn't do.
When the greatest Canelo came out, the one that you guys seen that fought Triple G the first time, bro, dude popped dirty for clenbuterol, bro. Why do you think the second fight didn't happen? So, for me, seeing that was the best Canelo I've ever seen. But that was Canelo off of steroids. Everybody else that he fought Amir Khan, he fought Daniel Jacobs, he fought, what the f is his name, Billy Joe Saunders, Caleb Plant. These guys are all weak, bro. So for me, that's why I feel like I see Canelo Alvarez and I see like he's not as good as everybody thinks. Because the best one that fought Golovkin that first time was off clenbuterol. That was the best Canelo I've ever seen, and that's why he looked so good, because he was off clenbuterol. So with the Canelo, he even got suspended for like 7 months.
So it's guaranteed he was
guaranteed
off
he took it. He said that he ate meat that was tainted in Mexico.
Now let me ask you that question.
I've talked to people. They said for him to test positive off a piece of meat, he would have had to eat the whole cow.
You know, they keep saying that David Benavidez is not Mexican. And you know what? I'm starting to believe y'all, because he's entirely too honest. He wants to fight the best, and he wants to challenge himself. So, you know what? I agree with you guys. He ain't Mexican. You right about that. The truth of the matter is, Canelo Alvarez has always been an average fighter. He worked very hard to become as good as he is. I'll give him that credit for, being diligent on his craft. But Canelo was never nothing special, to be honest. He served the need to satisfy the Latin boxing fan base. And I'm going to be real with you. We needed Canelo for a little while. We needed him. I mean, Canelo's held up boxing, simply because other people are running into other sports. So, we needed him to be a puppet a little bit. You know what I'm saying? I'll agree to that. We needed him to be a puppet a little bit. But when it got to the point he started blocking people and, talk about he's the best, but not wanting to fight the best, and, holding up other people's careers and not doing what he's supposed to and all this other stuff, well, that changed the whole dynamic of Canelo, because in the beginning, huge Canelo fan, huge. I just figured out what he was doing, and I wasn't with that. And Canelo's been average for a minute. And if the best Canelo we seen was on steroids, and that was against Triple G, and that's two fights that y'all still argue whether this guy won or that guy won, that lets you know Canelo's always been average. He was just a good, you got to admit, he was a good thing to sell. He's a Mexican that looks Caucasian. Latinos is going to eat that up. Damn near can't blame them. Can't blame them. They were going to eat that up. Period. But like I said, they got to cheat to compete. And ever since that loss to Floyd, he's been cheating his way this entire, whether it's the judges, whether it's PEDs, whether it's cherry picks, or whether it's fake fights. Canelo has done it all. He has literally done it all. And boxing is so backwards, you got a dude, this is the same thing I say about Usyk. You got a dude where you don't have to pretend, you don't have to make nothing up. He really is that. They don't like him. They didn't have to pretend for years that Loma was this, that, and the third. Usyk is really that. They don't say too much about him. Boxing is weird. That's for sure. Boxing is weird. But the fact that Canelo's always been average and his best win to himself is Triple G, and Triple G is one of the most overhyped, unaccomplished fighters. He's not a bad fighter. Know the difference. He's not a bad fighter. Triple G was a pretty good fighter. He just didn't want to take the proper challenges. He was forever chasing the payday in Canelo Alvarez. But if that's your best opponent, then what the hell does that say? Who did he beat? David Lemieux, Daniel Jacobs, and what? That's about it. That's about it. Nothing else special. So once again, you talk about resumes, and Triple G is your best opponent, but Triple G ain't got no resume. You know, and anybody defends that, they're defending having a white guy in boxing. But if we're being honest, he don't got a resume. That's why I say you can't really talk about boxing like that unless you address the elephant in the room. Now, that's true. Now, did they try to hype him up to be Marvin Hagler or better than Marvin Hagler? Yes, but we all knew he had no business being mentioned in the same light as that man. We all knew that, but that's how boxing goes. So they try to make Triple G look like he's better than what he was. And Canelo wanted to capitalize off that, point blank and period. But he couldn't capitalize off it too much because he didn't want to fight him. Triple G is somebody that aged like milk. Okay? He really does. You know, he ain't got the best genetics. He really don't. But Triple G aged like milk. He could have fought him when he was ripe and prime and all that other stuff. He didn't want to do it. And then the problem with talking about Canelo now, they don't have an excuse to hide behind. Because the Mayweather loss, he's too young. They like to say he's too old for Crawford, but Crawford is older than him. So now, with this fight with Terrence Crawford, they're stuck in a place where no excuse is going to suffice. If Canelo is moving slow or you think he's out of his prime and he's younger than Terrence Crawford, he ain't shit. Point blank, period. Because in one instance, they could talk about the youth. And then they talk about, oh, no, he's slowing down. Canelo has always been an average fighter. He still hasn't had a fight or a win that's been bigger than his loss to Mayweather. And that's the problem. And the Latino boxing fan base have been stuck at that Mayweather loss ever since. And we're tired of hearing about it. Y'all still crying about Floyd umpteen years later. We're tired of hearing about it. Y'all want to turn Terrence Crawford into Floyd. But yet he ain't got no resume, but he's better than Floyd. He ain't done nothing in boxing, but he's better than Floyd. Like, it's ridiculous. All this stuff to cater to people's egos and insecurities. Now, they don't like David Benavidez because he want to be something, because he want to challenge himself. But before even that, the real reason, this is how fucked up. I know I'm going to curve the Latino thing maybe a little bit, but this is where they fucked up. They so fucked up. Mexicans is so fucked up. They don't care if David is half this and half that. They don't really care about that. They don't. That's their excuse. Their real problem with David Benavidez is that he signed to Al Heyman. Now you tell me that ain't some low level, low vibrational, low IQ, pitiful bullshit. Just because he signed to a Maete or a black guy, they don't like him. Point blank, period. Nothing more, nothing less. That's really what it is. That, and he ain't as light as Canelo. They don't like them cornrows. They don't like that tan skin he got. They don't like that. You know? Not over the Mexican that looks Irish. No. So they made up whatever to help Canelo beat his champion and stuff like that. And maybe you got lost in the illusion. I don't know. But Canelo's always been an average fighter. And that's why I always agree with Canelo when he says he represent Mexico. You know, he represent a nation of average fighters. And I'm going to say something to get up under their skin. Mexicans are not dominant in a lot of sports. Almost none, except boxing. And the sport that you have the most talent, in the sport that you are best at, you're only second best in the sport that you do the best at. That's gotta irritate you. That in the only sport where you're recognized and dominant, you're still second best. We could be dominant over here in football. We could be dominant over here in basketball. We could be dominant over here in track. We could be dominant in fighting. We could be dominant in UFC. These guys, they just got one little outlet. That's why I say it's stupid not to embrace David Benavidez. Because when Canelo's not here, who you going to have? Pitbull Cruz? Ryan Garcia? What? Zepeda? What? Virgil Ortiz? Who? None of these guys are potential future stars. However, on this side, got a whole fucking lineup. And y'all just have to accept that we are the superior fighter. History shows that it ain't nothing wrong with that. Everybody's good at something. You know what I'm saying? Everybody dominates something very well. This just ain't a sport where you do it. You know, but when you get somebody that could be a beast, a monster, you don't embrace them on petty shit. Which ends me to say this. Canelo and his fans is one of the worst things that happened to boxing. You want to know why all these fighters are popping dirty so much? Because the lack of response of having your so-called face of boxer popping steroids and nothing really happening to him. That's why you got a whole bunch of Mexicans and stuff popping steroids. The sons of Canelo. That's exactly why. Everything trickles down from the top. Okay? So, and all this not fighting the best and all this other stuff. So he messed up boxing in that manner. Then he have his fan base. You want to know why we can't get more boxing fans, but we always attract the idiots and racists? Because Mexicans is so fucking racist. How can anybody being introduced to the sport want to stay interested in the sport when they get attacked for just being interested in the sport? You get what I'm saying? Like, they so bad for boxing. How is the youth going to come to this sport and say, yeah, I like boxing and stuff like that? They get online, they got a Mexican, N-word, black, 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 black. They don't want to hear these kids 13, 15, 12. And you wonder why they get turned off and go to another sport. With any business, to attract youth is the main goal. I don't care if you're selling cigarettes. You know what I'm saying? I don't care if you're running a gym. The youth is the main target audience in everything. So if you can't make the youth feel comfortable being introduced to a sport, who want to come to a sport to deal with racism? Who? We trying to have fun over here. But we can't, because every time I turn around, Pedro over there, black, 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 black. Like, dude, Jesus, get off a black man's nuts. You giving me blue balls, y'all hugging so hard. There's no reason to be this obsessed with us, bro. But the truth is, Canelo's always been average. He always will be average. He will go down in the Hall of Fame, but for the people who really know boxing, his biggest accomplishment will be losing to Floyd Mayweather, because he still hasn't eclipsed that loss, because he's too scared to take a risk, because his talent has limits. Like, comment, subscribe. Bruce Van, I'm out.